Lord, we thank you for this opportunity to be together for a little while. We pray that you would bless us and help us to open our minds and hearts to new thoughts, new possibilities. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
So we'll pick it up at Ecclesiastes 3, actually verse 16. And what I'm going to read it from the Message this week, because I think other translations are probably better translations, but it can be harder to unpack the language that goes with it. So this makes it a little easier. And we'll read up to 4:6, and then we'll talk about that section. So the writer says, I took another good look at what's going on. The very place of judgment, corrupt. The place of righteousness, corrupt. I said to myself, God will judge righteous and wicked. There's a right time for everything, every deed, and there's no getting around it. I said to myself regarding the human race, God's testing the lot of us, showing us up as nothing but animals. Humans and animals come to the same end. Humans die, animals die. We all breathe the same air, so there's really no advantage in being human, none. Everything is smoke. We all end up in the same place. We all came from dust. We all end up as dust. Nobody knows for sure that the human spirit rises to heaven or that the animal spirit sinks into the earth. So I made up my mind that there's nothing better for us men and women than to have a good time. And whatever we do, that's our lot. Who knows if there's anything else to life? Next, I turned my attention to all the outrageous violence that takes place on this planet, the tears of the victims, no one to comfort them, the iron grip of oppressors, no one to rescue the victims from them. So I congratulated the dead who are already dead instead of the living who are still alive. But luckier than the dead or the living is the person who has never even been, who has never seen the bad business that takes place on this earth. Then I observed all the work and ambition motivated by envy. What a waste, smoke and spitting into the wind. The fool sits back and takes it easy. His sloth is slow suicide. One handful of peaceful repose is better than 2 fistfuls of worried work. More spitting in the wind. So, what do you think?
Oh boy. As that, he's not off the mark.
Dark, dark, dark. Yeah.
You know, when you think about everything in the world, unfortunately, you know, with the media now being able to report worldwide instantly, we just hear it. It makes it like it's outside your door. But oppression, hunger, people hurting people. Jeez, please stop.
Yep. Your words are different. Mine says oppression and oppressor. And
He's not off the mark. And so obviously, even back then, this is what was going on.
Oh yeah, if you look at world history,
sure,
you know,
It never stops.
it's all, there's a lot of the same realities in every age and every place. And certainly I agree that probably it's pretty valid observations of reality. But what do we do?
Well, I prayed.
Okay.
that's yeah, pray.
And I give to the Lutheran World Relief because they really do a good job on the minimum amount of expenses. They're really a good. And when I pray, I just say, God, lay your hand on this earth and take care of everybody. You know who needs the help.
Yep.
Right.
And if you start thinking about it, the ones that are starving, the ones that are extremely lonely, the ones that are in oppression, the ones that, you know, and hey, so then I just let the Lord take
it
and stay with the people who are helping, give them strength. Like, what else are you going to do?
Thy will be done, and pray for a soft landing for everybody. I've had groups of people dying at the same time in my life, and I was just I kept asking, how do I pray for them? And now my neighbors have COVID, and it's always something. So it's like, okay, they will be done, and because we don't know what the outcome is going to be. And this one reminds me a little bit about live for today, for tomorrow we may die.
I think there is a sense of what the author is in part saying. And we'll get more into it as we move along, how he unpacks that a little bit. But he does give us another angle on it as we move into the next section. And this is 4:7-12. I turned my head and saw yet another wisp of smoke on its way to nothingness, a solitary person, completely alone, no children, no family, no friends, yet working obsessively late into the night, compulsively greedy for more and more, never bothering to ask, why am I working like a dog, never having any fun? And who cares? More smoke, a bad business. It's better to have a partner than go it alone. Share the work, share the wealth, and if one falls down, the other helps. But if there's no one to help, tough. Two in a bed warm each other, alone you shiver all night. By yourself, you're unprotected. With a friend, you can face the worst. You can round up a third. A three-stranded rope isn't easily snapped.
I like that.
Well, that is love thy neighbor, isn't it? Sure, you get into it with people.
Yeah, be connected, that, there's strength in relationship, however those relationships are set out. I think primarily in the first part, marriage is the thing that he's talking about, or family. But then as you move out, this idea of, a bunch of people together are harder to break down than one person who tries to go it alone. And if you're one person on your own and all you do is work and work, then what's the point?
Yeah.
And there are people who that's the choice they make, but then the question is, why? What are you getting out of that? And then he goes on to another interesting point that I think people today would be well to listen to. He says, a poor child with some wisdom is better off than an old but foolish king who doesn't know which end is up. I saw a youth just like this start with nothing and go from rags to riches, and I saw everyone rally to the rule of this young successor to the king. Even so, the excitement died quickly. The throngs of people soon lost interest. Can't you see it's only smoke and spitting into the wind?
Well, okay, now this one I'd like to talk about.
Okay.
So he's saying that your fame is fleeting.
Yep. All the power you acquire, all the things you do, it's all just gonna fade.
Yeah. Well, true, but this one is this particular paragraph is he's really down in the dumps, it sounds like. I mean, he's really, even if you're great, it's only fleeting. Even if, not saying that you're giving to humanity, that you're increasing, making things better.
Or the other side of the coin, and that's certainly one way to hear it, is the sense of, even if you're all that, you're really not all that.
Yeah.
But the part I hear more in it is, look at our world. People will do anything to hold on to their Senate seat or to get whatever power they have. But in the end, who's going to remember you?
Yeah. Can you name
the Speaker of the House from 30 years ago? Probably not.
Yeah.
Unless it's the same Speaker of the House that was 30 years ago, you probably.
Right. Yeah.
So there's a sense, what I hear him saying is, if this is where you're placing all your marbles, if this is where you're looking to build your existence or whatever.
I remember when I was about 40 and one of my compatriots was a Lutheran minister's wife. She was 50. And we were discussing how
That's of my notification.
we weren't in management. We were still taking care of patients. And she said, Joan, I've come to believe that if we were in management, where would those patients be? Because we really care about them. Because it was getting harder for us to be in, as we called it, the trenches.
Mm-hmm.
But that kind of relieved pressure off me because there was so much pressure from my family to succeed. But this was a different kind of success.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So this is true. And it's all fleeting, but yeah. It's those are aha moments, you know, as you go through life. Yeah.
So what I hear the author saying, and again, this is one of those books that I think people hear this in widely different fashions.
Yeah.
I hear the author asking the question, if you're throwing all your energy, everything in your life into this, remember, it's all going to be gone anyway.
Right.
Sure. You said that earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, the question, and I think we in the end are asked to kind of ruminate about as people who are hearing this book or reading this book, is to ask the question, so what is our life centered in? Where do we center our reality? Is it in something that's, you know, it's all just gonna go away? Or is there a deeper reality or a more life-giving reality to focus on? That's the question that is being asked. And each of us has to weigh that out carefully as we go along. And one of the things he again then reminds people is who's in charge. So that's really the next section of the book. Watch your step when you enter God's house. Enter to learn. That's far better than mindlessly offering a sacrifice, doing more harm than good. Don't shoot off your mouth or speak before you think. Don't be too quick to tell God what you think he wants to hear. God's in charge, not you. The less you speak, the better. Overwork makes for restless sleep. Overtalk shows you up as a fool. When you tell God you'll do something, do it now. God takes no pleasure in foolish dribble. Vow it, then do it. Far better not to vow in the first place than to vow and not pay up. Don't let your mouth make a total sinner of you. When called to account, you won't get by with, sorry, I didn't mean it. Why risk provoking God to angry retaliation? But against all illusion and fantasy and empty talk, there's always this rock foundation. Fear God.
Mine says, awe of God.
And fear, you know, when fear
Yeah.
God has the same
Yeah,
connotation.
right.
Not be afraid, but
Do not let your mouth lead you into sin. I'm not perfect either, the words that come out of my mouth, but I really believe that it's important to watch how you say things or say things. And I noticed the grandkids were calling each other idiots. I said, that's not a good word. And Bella and Bradley, the two oldest. And I said, that's a word we don't use in Grandma's house. And Brad said, but there's nothing wrong with that word. And Bella said, yeah, but we don't say it in Grandma's house. But I want to show him that movie, Flowers for Algernon Down the Line, because that shows where a man didn't have much knowledge and then he gained it and then he lost it. And then I'm going to go and because he doesn't understand it yet. He sees it in media and thinks it's okay. I come from a long line of, if you call somebody, that was one of the worst things you could say. But I didn't want to go all into that. He's not ready to hear all that.
Right.
But this makes me think of that is to tread lightly.
Well, I think a lot of what's being said in this section is more along the lines of, so you go to church and you say, God, I'm your faithful child, I'll do it. And then you go out into the world and don't live up to that at all.
That's very common. Yeah.
The writer's saying, well, God's not a fool.
Right.
Mhm.
It's not like you're not going to make mistakes, but at least don't intentionally just kind of go in and have a kind of half-hearted sort of thing, because God ultimately is the one who's in charge. Now, the writer will say, I don't always get what God's doing, and I have to agree. There
Of
are
course.
times I don't get what God's doing
Yeah.
either.
He's kind of a loose, that things run sometimes.
But,
Yeah.
But still, the author recognizes the reality that God is the one who's in charge. So in
Mhm.
that sense, we come to God with a certain sense of reverence, humility, those pieces of things. And it's better, sometimes it's better just to shut up and listen to God than it is to try to tell God what to do. Though I try to tell God what to do. I can't lie. It's,
Well, I think, when we all lie. Personally, I think there'll be a why line in heaven.
A lie line? That's cute.
Why line.
Oh, why line? Oh,
So we
And
can
we
all
all
stand in
pay.
line to ask why. And it'll be so long, we might never get to the front of the line.
That's right. And I had a friend of mine, and I told her that, and her husband, he just died, and she just turned around and looked at me and she said, yeah, and I'm the first one in the line. Okay, you got it. We'll put you there.
that's cute.
So then we turn to another thing that certainly in our world has become, almost obsessive. People search after it, which is wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be too upset when you see the poor kicked around and justice and right violated all over the place. Exploitation filters down from one petty official to another.
Yeah.
There's no end to it. Nothing can be done about it. But the good earth doesn't cheat anyone. Even a bad king is honestly served by a field. So in other words, you can go and get all these people and try to get them. But a field gives you what a field gives you. It's not. The one who loves money is never satisfied with money, nor the one who loves wealth with big profits. More smoke. The more loot you get, the more looters show up. And what fun is that, to be robbed in broad daylight? Hard and honest work earns a good night's sleep, whether supper is beans or steak. But a rich person's belly gives them insomnia. Here's a piece of bad luck I've seen happen. A person hoards far more wealth than is good for them and then loses it, all in a bad business deal. They fathered a child, but hasn't a cent left to give them. They arrived naked from the womb of their mother, and they'll leave in the same condition with nothing. This is bad luck, for sure. Naked they came, naked they go. So what was the point of working for a salary of smoke? All for a miserable life spent in the dark. What do you think of?
Well, I've never gone after wealth, so this one,
Doesn't speak to you as much.
no, no. But I can see if you are consumed, but one of the things that's came out to me in this one is, so you have wealth and you get it, but now you have to be aware of people who want to steal, kidnap your children, for ransom, so.
Or even if nothing else, what happens is you start worrying about losing it.
Yeah.
What if I lose it in the stock market? What if I make a bad deal? What if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? And suddenly you're in this whole sort of spin of
Consumed by it.
what you possesses you in the end.
Well, listen to people who have traveled, there's great poverty in India, but they said that people aren't as upset about it as they are in America.
No, because so many people are poor.
Well, plus they have a little bit different belief system, and they also don't have as much media. Now it's probably changing. This was years back. But yeah, this is a big thing in our country. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for me, what the whole section really speaks about is not that wealth is bad, not that even wanting some money is bad, but if what you're really doing is just amassing wealth to amass wealth, then what's the point? All it does is give you a headache and you don't really get anything out of it in the long run. So it doesn't make any sense. And what's worse is what comes next in the section. If I can get my phone back where it was. Then it says, after looking at the way things are on this earth, here's what I've decided is the best way to live. Take care of yourself. Have a good time. Make the most of whatever job you have. For as long as God gives you life. And that's about it. That's the human life. Yes, we should make the most of what God gives, both the bounty and the capacity to enjoy it, accepting what's given and delighting in the work. It's God's gift. God deals out joy in the present, the now. It's useless to brood over how long we might live. I looked long and hard at what goes on around here, and let me tell you, things are bad. People feel it. There are people, for instance, on whom God showers everything, money, property, reputation, all they ever wanted or dreamed of, and then God doesn't let them enjoy it. Some stranger comes along and has all the fun. It's more of what I'm calling smoke and a bad business. Say a couple have scores of children and live a long, long life, but never enjoy themselves, even though they end up with a big funeral. I'd say that a stillborn baby gets the better deal. It gets its start in a mist and ends up in the dark unnamed. It sees nothing and knows nothing, but is better off by far than anyone living. Even if someone lived 1,000 years, maybe 2,000, but they didn't enjoy anything, what's the point? Doesn't everyone end up in the same place?
There are people that just are constantly negative.
Yes.
They're tough to deal with. I think gives well possessions. So the person gives the person the means to get the wealth, the possession of the honor, rather than God is pulling like a puppet.
Yeah.
Pulling all the strings. No. I think he creates us and then we go out and do things.
But there is a warning in it that some people don't see it that way. What they see is everything I have, I got for myself.
Correct. You got that right.
So God has nothing to do with it. God doesn't
Oh yeah, like that.
give us any gifts.
Yeah.
You know, it's just about me, and I acquire it, and I acquire it. And in the end, what becomes their whole life is about that acquisition of whatever it is. Whenever I read this section of Ecclesiastes, all I can think of is Scrooge.
Oh yeah.
I mean, yeah, Scrooge got rich. How happy was he, though?
Yeah.
Not particularly. And it took something to help him realize, so what? So you acquired all this wealth. So you managed to hang on to it. Yeah. So what's that doing for you? And the writer then goes on to say, we work to feed our appetites. Meanwhile, our souls go hungry. So what advantage has a sage over a fool or over some poor wretch who barely gets by? Just grab whatever you can while you can. Don't assume something better might turn up by and by. All it amounts to anyway is smoke and spitting into the wind. So we're back to what the message of chapter 3 was, which is, you have what you have. You can find out what you don't Or you can embrace the reality that's right in front of you, the friends you have, the family you have, whatever God has placed in front of you. Those are the things that are there. And so, as you know, to embrace that reality and notice the goodness of God in it is what brings life and what can otherwise be a really meaningless world. There is no meaning, this writer says, outside of that which we embrace that's right in front of us. Embrace in our relationship with God, embrace in our relationship with one another. It's taking the moments that come. Those are the things that begin to define our happiness or unhappiness in life. So you have to decide, are you going to live in this moment that you have with all, and for some people, in some ways this book is overly simplistic. People who are living in dire poverty, I'm not sure this philosophy is like,
Right.
even the part where he says, they're bad officials and there's nothing. Well, there is something we could do about it. We could stand up to that and say, no, we're not going to have that be the reality we live in. There are things we could do about that. But there is some truth about receiving the moments as they come, not getting caught up in obsessions over wealth or power or all these other things. Those obsessions can never be filled. You can go, you're never going to have all the money. You're never going to have all the power. You're never going to have, those things you're chasing after. It is chasing after wind. No one can ever get that. So in the end, the author's saying, just recognize what you have, where you are. Pay attention. And it gives us a little transition then around that. Whatever happens, happens. Its destiny is fixed. You can't argue with fate. I'm not sure I believe in fate, but you can't change what already has happened. I mean, it is there. The more words that are spoken, the more smoke there is in the air. And who is any better off? And who knows what's best for us as we live out our meager smoke and shadow lives? And who can tell any of us the next chapter of our lives? So yeah, sometimes I'm not even sure we know what's good.
Yeah.
What's bad. We do our best to unwrap that, but ultimately, are we always right?
Yeah.
Maybe not. And we need to be able to accept that reality in the midst of what we're doing.
Common statement is, it is what it is.
Yep. And that's somewhat what this author is saying.
Yeah.
It is what it is. You can whine about it, cry about it.
Or make it better, or try to make it better.
In the future, you could, and he would. I think the author would say that's part of embracing the moment. But you can't change what is. I mean, what is already is. There's nothing you can do about a past reality that brought you to this moment. It's fixed.
It's tough for people who have faith of a child to see cruelty continue in their lives and not understand it. So, but this is kind of like in your face about it.
Yeah. Well, and much of this book is kind of like that, hitting you with hard realities that in a lot of ways all of us struggle with and question. But it does then ask us to consider that carefully. And then the next section asks us to consider what really is the relative worth of things in our life. So he goes on to write, a good reputation is better than a fat bank account. Your death date tells more than your birthday. You learn more at a funeral than at a feast. After all, that's where we'll all end up. You might discover something from it. Crying is better than laughing. It blotches the face, but it scours the heart. Sages invest themselves in hurt and grieving. Fools waste their lives in fun and games. You'll get more from the rebuke of a sage than from the song and dance of fools. The giggles of fools are like the crackling of twigs under the cooking pot and like smoke. Brutality stupefies even the wise and destroys the strongest heart. Endings are better than beginnings. Sticking to it is better than standing out. Don't be quick to fly off the handle. Anger boomerangs. You can spot a fool by the lumps on his head. Don't always be asking, where are the good old days? Wise folks don't ask questions like that. Wisdom is better when it's paired with money, especially if you get both while you're still living. Double protection, wisdom and wealth. Plus this bonus, wisdom energizes its owner. Take a good look at God's work. Who would simplify and reduce creation's curves and angles to a plain straight line? On a good day, enjoy yourself. On a bad day, examine your conscience. Good arranges for both kinds of days so that we won't take anything for granted. So what do you do with that wonderful grouping of wisdom?
It makes me think about the roller coaster of life. I tell the young ones in my family, there's ups and downs, and you can survive the downs. Be thankful for the ups. But I don't think everybody thinks that way.
Well, he seems to be taking, in this particular section, some positive things and saying, no wrong. Like it's sorrow is better than laughter. Not always. I think laughter is a gift from God. I really do.
Yeah.
And but the heart of the line says of fools is in the house of mirth. Oh, come on. So anything, but maybe use the word positive, he seems to say no. It's the opposite. He's getting a little down.
Okay, so maybe our readers are depressive.
Yeah.
Needs to take some antidepressants.
Right, I mean, it's really, vanity, it's all vanity.
He's cautious.
Starts right.
He's cautious. Yeah.
Yeah, the section I think was a little harder to unpack. For me, one of the things I guess I started to think about it is that it establishes that there's a relativity about existence, and that you can't always assume one condition is good, one condition is bad. So I think a lot of times you're right, laughter and joy are the gifts of God. We embrace those. I think what the author may be pointing at with the difference between sorrow and funeral is that most of the time when people are in those sorts of places of sorrow and sadness, and remember back in chapter 3 it says there's time for this, time for that, that there's an honesty that is there in people's sadness and pain, where oftentimes people will laugh to cover over their honest feelings. So they're not really honest feelings at that point. And so the author may be pointing to the fact that to go to a funeral is to confront the realities of people's feelings, the realities of mortality. You're not just laughing it off and saying, okay, everything's fine. You are confronting the realistic situation. But that's not how you want to spend all your life. That's not how you want to spend all of your existence. But certainly some people would say, I try to avoid sadness at any time. I know people who will just go out of their way, never confront the darker, more painful parts of the world. And so what I hear is kind of this sense of, well, realize that sometimes to be in these places is far more honest, is far more, powerful for us than being in those places of just laughing all the time.
Well,
Can't laugh all the time.
Yeah, no, I don't mean you should laugh all the time, but.
Yeah, but I think that's what he's getting at. He's making that comparison of, or that, a good reputation is better than having all the money in the world. That's what a lot of people recognize as the reality. Though sometimes maybe that money can be
Put to use, yeah.
really important in a given situation. You'll get more from the rebuke of none of us likes criticism, but there's a sense in which criticism sometimes is more helpful than people giving you false praise. He points to that reality. So he says that you'll get more from the rebuke of a sage than from the song and dance of fools. So you may not want that, but sometimes brutality always kind of breaks people down.
Mhm.
It's not something to, and sometimes endings are better than beginnings. Beginnings, we have lots of things we see as possibilities, but in the end, we can analyze things that are, and really be able to, sticking to it is better than standing out. So it's better to be, persevere, do what you're supposed to do, rather than looking for everybody to say, what a wonderful person you are. It's better just do what you do and move on in your life. So it's mainly, as I read it, it's that realization that there's a relativity to everything in life. What's good in this place may not be so good in this other place, and that we have to be open to the situations in which things occur. And the ending is a little bit hard to take. If nothing's new, he says, then the present's more important than the past, because present we can embrace as it is. If we say the past was better, we should be back there. Well, the past will probably come back someday anyway. It's all kind of circular anyhow. And the past is past. So just live in the, don't go, oh, it was so much better when we were back.
I find myself saying that because it was.
I don't agree with that, because I'm glad that my parents aren't here, because they may not be able to cope with this much change. And, we say it was better in the 50s. Maybe it was safer, kids could go out at night, but maybe things were going on that just weren't talked about. And that's what I said.
Sin is sin. It's just that we didn't shoot people. We didn't drive a car in a parade and kill people at that guy walk or something.
I have my own theory on that. We've closed a lot of mental health facilities since I was a young person. It used to be free. So whatever, there's a lot of things that changed. The proliferity of guns, that's new.
And meanness too.
Yeah, well,
you didn't, saying that somebody would correct you. You were very cautious about it. But now you can get on that computer and you can say all kinds of things because you're not facing a person.
Yeah, there is an anonymity now.
So in my mind, it's you too. You got to get involved.
Okay.
There, thank you.
But
yeah, that's a tough one.
I suppose I've come to look at a lot of it's the same over time. The nature of it may be different. The intensity of it sometimes may be different.
It is higher, yeah.
But, you go back, and Chris has been watching a lot of the kind of historical stuff about what went on in England in the 1400s and 1500s.
Pretty intense, yeah.
Yeah, every time a king would change, they would kill all the Catholics, and they would kill all the Protestants, and
back and forth,
it was kind of
yeah.
back and forth with people you have the Crusades, you have the purges in all kinds of countries. Are things any worse than they were then? We had the Black Death that killed 1/4 of Europe.
Sure.
You have.
Look at this writer. There was no media, there was no newspaper, and yet he's got everything that we're talking about today in today's world. He's here.
So, I mean, there are differences in today. I think we can talk about the differences, but is it better?
No,
Is it worse?
We're
I
more
mean,
aware.
you know, we can't. And one of the things he'll say is you can't really know whether it's better or worse
True.
than today or tomorrow or whatever. What you have is the moment you're in. So live there. Embrace the reality. Do what, you know, don't try to, you know, create something that's not there. He goes on in this section to say, I've seen it all in my brief and pointless life here. A good person cut down in the middle of doing good. They're a bad person living a long life of sheer evil. So don't knock yourself out being good and don't go overboard being wise. Believe me, you won't get anything out of it. But don't press your luck by being bad either. And don't be reckless. Why die needlessly? It's best to stay in touch with both sides of an issue. The person who fears God deals responsibly with all of reality, not just a piece of it. Wisdom puts more strength in one wise person than 10 strong men give to a city. There's not one totally good person on earth, not one who is truly pure and sinless. Don't eavesdrop on the conversations of others. What if the gossips about you and you'd rather not hear it? You've done that a few times, haven't you? Said things behind someone's back you wouldn't say to his face. So, again, there's kind of this sense of moderation about what the person's saying. Don't, you know, the problem with being excessively good is that then you become self-righteous. Definitely you don't want to be bad because, well, that leads to all kinds of bad things. So, moderate yourself.
Find a middle place, yeah.
No, I would say still try to be good. Just be sure that you don't somehow compare your goodness to everybody else, saying, look, I'm better than ever over there, or somehow comparing things. But again, live your life as it is, accept who you are. Now, the next person I have the next section is the one I find most difficult in Ecclesiastes for some reason. I tested everything in my search for wisdom. I set out to be wise, but it was beyond me, far beyond me, and deep, oh so deep. Does anyone ever find it? I concentrated with all my might, studying, exploring, seeking wisdom, the meaning of life. I also wanted to identify evil and stupidity, foolishness and craziness. One discovery, a woman can be a bitter pill to swallow, full of seductive scheming and grasping. The lucky escape her, the undiscerning get caught. At least this is my experience, what I, the quester, have pieced together as I've tried to make sense of life. But the wisdom I've looked for, I haven't found. I didn't find one man or woman and 1,000 worth my while. Yet I could spot one ray of life in this murk. God made men and women true and upright. We're the ones who've made a mess of things.
He must be single, huh?
Yeah. Or misogynist.
Yeah.
You know, because men are, you know, I don't know. That just struck me as boy.
Yeah, thinks narrowly in that area. Yeah.
And he says wisdom. What would your definition of wisdom be? When he uses that word a lot.
Yeah, and well, I think for the person who's writing this book, wisdom would be to gain an understanding of what life's supposed to be about. That's what wisdom is, so that you can then live your existence in continuity with what life's supposed to be about. The problem is, nothing seems to really fit that bill. What makes for a full life? Well, knowledge doesn't, because, you know, you can get all kinds of knowledge, and so what? You're going to die. What's the point? You can go for wealth. There are people who've argued that's the center of reality, but, you know, in and of itself, it doesn't do anything. You're going to die, and it'll give you a lot of headaches while you're on the way. So
not really too useful. Being in power, some people think that's going to make your life, that you can control your destiny, but you can't control your destiny, and you're going to die. And so what's the, if you think that's the center of what life is about, then that's not really true. To be famous, whoever gets to be famous forever? Almost nobody. So
Frank Sinatra.
well, maybe a couple 100,000 years from now, nobody will remember Frank either. Is that, no, that doesn't really, what you have in like the book of Proverbs is this whole, in some ways, this book is a balance against what you find in the book of Proverbs, which says if you follow all these things, then your life will be really good and everything will go right with you. So you get all these things about, spare the rod, spoil the child. If you do all these things, then you'll raise good children and your life will be long. And the book, the writer of Ecclesiastes said, I tried it. Doesn't work. Doesn't make your life any better. Might not make your life any worse, but it's certainly not a guarantee that life's going to be this wonderful. But so what do? Well, the understanding this writer, at least to me, seems to give so far is accept what is. Embrace it. Enjoy. Work's hard, but enjoy it the best you can. Eat good food, drink, enjoy your family, enjoy the people who are around you, embrace those moments. When you're sad, be sad. That's okay. That's part of existence. When you're happy, be happy. Don't, second guess yourself. Just go ahead and do those things. When it's time to let go of things, let go. When it's time to embrace new things, embrace it. Just live life as it comes. Live life. Don't. There may be, it's almost like the writer's saying, there may be no other explanation of how to live the good life other than just live your life. And embrace that reality. Any other thing becomes obsessive and ultimately doesn't get you anywhere.
Yeah.
That's what I hear the book saying. Other people find it, the person I've been reading kind of on the side who wrote a commentary on this, just sees it all as negative. This is just a negative valuation of reality. That's how they read this book, that the writer is basically saying, it all sucks anyway. So just accept it and get on with your life. That's kind of the bottom line of it. I'm not sure I'm willing to go quite that far. I'm more into what he's saying is all these obsessive elements we have in life, they aren't the meaning of life. God defines the meaning of life. We don't really understand God anyway, because a lot of what God does just doesn't make any sense. And I agree that a lot of times I look at the world and it doesn't make any sense. But God is God, and God provides life. And you've got it. So embrace it. That's kind of there's a certain sense of, not a whole lot of assertion in that reality. I tend to be a little more quixotic in my life.
You have to tilt at a few windmills and take on a few issues and try to do something to change the world. And I know probably I'm not going to change it in huge and incredible ways.
Living in the moment.
Yeah. But I'm a little more forceful in how I want to live that life. I don't want to just embrace the reality that comes to me. Some ways I want to change that reality. This author seems to say, and there is truth in it, that we have to also embrace the reality that a lot of times you don't. You can throw yourself at it all you want, but there's still going to be bad leaders. There's still, there's going to be officials who just don't care. There's going to be poverty. There's going to be death. There's going to be all these things that go on. And yes, they probably will always be with us. But we in our small sphere, I believe, can begin to make some changes. And that's the place where probably I'm most different from the writer. But I appreciate the analysis the writer gives us of, yeah, let's be honest about life. Life is not a bowl of cherries. And sometimes you can find in biblical material that some of the authors within the Bible have more of a sense of, oh yeah, life's just hunky-dory. It's just the way it's supposed to be. Well, the book of Ecclesiastes says, no, it's not the way it's supposed to be.
That's right.
So don't fool yourself about that reality. Well, we will pick it up there and go to the end of the book then next Tuesday.